It comes from somebody who is a lawyer with a legal mind, who is expected to have, a fair consideration of what is going on, that he could make such an outrageously wrong statement on what is there for everybody to see. Unfortunately, in fact, even as he was making those ridiculous statements, he was being shown the evidence of what actually happens in the country that he was talking about. So the human rights in Uganda have been documented extensively, including by the Uganda Human Rights Commission itself, which is a government body, and there is therefore no debate as to the not just the existence but the extent, the egregious kind of levels of abuses that take place in our country. Most of them are captured on television because they act with impunity. You may recall when I was hospitalized here in Nairobi after the 2011 elections, what happened, on the streets of Kampala, where, my vehicle was attacked and broken into, and I was showered with all kinds of chemicals and thrown under a jeep of the police in a very, very terrible situation, and got injuries that brought me into Nairobi. And this is now happening to somebody of the kind of visibility that I had in full view of the cameras. So you can imagine what happens outside the view of the media to ordinary people that don't have that kind of visibility. Day in, day out, people are disappearing, and lists of people have been given to government in parliament of people that have disappeared and taken in broad daylight by people, who are from security organizations. Some the government has conceded it. Yes, they are the ones with them. Indeed, some have been released with horrible torture marks on them. And displayed, in courts and so on and so forth. So the kinds of abuses cannot be debated.
Right. But before we went on a break, with all this, and the world is watching what is happening in Uganda, do you feel that the international community has turned a blind eye? Remember that the European Union, in fact, made a statement back in February of this year expressing concern and condemning the torture and violation of human rights in Uganda, saying that this goes even against the international commitments that Uganda has. But do you feel that this is just nothing is happening?
Yeah, yes, without doubt. Now, first, let me make it clear that Ugandans have the first and primary responsibility to cause their governments to account to them. So we know that we have the duty, the first duty to demand that we are treated in accordance with the law, with the constitution, with international covenants. And we have been doing pretty much that. That's in fact why I never set out to be in politics myself. I was a young doctor here in Nairobi in 1981 at the Aga Khan, at the Kenyatta National Hospital. The reason I went back and faced all kinds of situations, including the ones we are facing, is because I consider that it's our first responsibility as citizens to have good government and to cause our governments to account. However, human rights are universal, and any abuse of human rights anywhere is abuse of human rights everywhere, because if you don't address it, you'll fall victim of it sooner or later. And therefore, we expect indeed that the international community has an obligation that it should discharge in ensuring that the kinds of human rights that have been abuses that have been taking place in Uganda are checked. Unfortunately, that has not happened. And the reason partly it hasn't happened is because there has been some kind of a trade-off, because the international community, mainly the Western countries, were very concerned about the terrorism that has gripped the world, especially since 9/11. And because our forces were then conscripted into that fight against terrorism in Somalia, in Sudan, in other places, there was a trade-off of keeping a blind eye on what is happening in Uganda. And this is shameful, and I think it should stop, because you cannot say you are fighting terrorism while keeping a blind eye on human rights, because actually abuse of human rights fuels terrorism.